Oh my gosh. What's going on?
Good evening, everyone. It's now 5:30, and I call to order the workshop of the Victoria City Council. Our workshops are informal, and so with that, we'll dive right into our agenda. We have two items on the agenda this evening, and the first item is part of our regular transportation updates. This evening, we're going to be learning more about the right-of-way acquisition process as it relates to the upcoming transportation projects occurring in the city. Kicking us off on that this evening is our city engineer, Kara Guerin. Miss Guerin, welcome and please.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. This is information, this part of the presentation is information you've seen before, but as a reminder, the city has 5 different transportation projects planned for construction between 2024 and 2028. And so as part of those projects, all of them are going to require the project to obtain either right-of-way or easements from adjacent properties. I tried to count today. I stopped counting when I got over 60 to 70 different parcels, could be higher, I didn't count them all, that are affected by the projects as needing to provide easements or right-of-way. Some of those are in Chanhassen and Chaska, but get an idea that there's going to be a lot happening. Because of that, and because the City of Victoria hasn't been through the formal right-of-way acquisition process in quite a long time, we thought it would be a good idea to have this workshop to just have Peter Michael from Kennedy Graven go through what that process looks like before you're actually in a process. So this next slide here, I just wanted to take a minute to talk about the different projects and what stage they're at. So Highway 11 and Marsh Lake Road, that's the roundabout. Carver County is leading that process. They've been working on appraisals and working with the adjacent property owners on that acquisition. Highway 11 North, so that's from north of the 13.5 acres up to Highway 7. Most of the property that's impacted by that project is owned by Three Rivers Park District, so that discussion and negotiation is ongoing. 82nd Street, which is the extension of Highway 18, is a Carver County-led project. That process is also underway. The impacted property owners have all been notified, and that process has started. And then we'll jump to the last one, the Highway 5 project, the big job, which includes Rolling Acres Road, that is also led by Carver County. And they will be starting to send out letters soonish related to that acquisition. So as it relates to the City of Victoria and the Victoria City Council in particular, the Highway 11, Highway 5 Downtown West project, the city is leading that process. So Peter's going to describe for you generally what that process looks like, but on that particular project, the City Council will have to take specific action associated with the right-of-way acquisition process. So for all the other ones that aren't highlighted in red, I think it's helpful information for the council to have should you be contacted by any property owners who have questions about the process. But specific for 5 and 11, you will be in the driver's seat of needing to take action on that project related to the process. So I have just a picture here of what those improvements look like as a backdrop, but from here I'm going to turn it over to Peter Michael, and you do have a memo from him in your packet.
Very good. Thank you, Kara. Mr. Michael, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nice to see you this evening. I will try and be succinct and then make myself available for any questions you might have, because I'm sure this is not something you do every day, not something you want to do every day. But as you can see on the screen, our project, the design has reached basically maybe 90%, very close to final, with the goal of having as light a touch as we can on the property owners while maintaining the integrity of the project itself, right? And so that's an iterative process. We have conversations with experts at trying to make things fit, make things work, and mitigate the impacts that the citizens will experience from the acquisitions. All that being said, there's still acquisitions that are required. And so the law has a very well-established pathway for this. You will first attempt to buy the easements that we need. And we have engaged some really expert right-of-way agents to go and work with the owners and try and accomplish a purchase. As part of that process, the first thing we do is we have the easements appraised. We share those appraisals with the owners. There's no, poker playing, hiding the ball, nothing like that. We share our own appraisal with the owner, make an offer. We let the owners know they're entitled to get their own appraiser. We let them know they're entitled to be reimbursed for that appraisal up to certain statutory amounts, to try and have an open, honest conversation. What are you looking for? What can we do? And can we close the gap and have a deal? The problem is when we get to projects like these, they're always very time sensitive. There's funding deadlines, there's construction deadlines, these things got to move. And even when we have citizens who are happy to work with us, they may have a mortgage, there may be other factors involved that make it tough to get everything done on time. And then there may be some that we just can't reach an accord with. So that brings into the conversation eminent domain, condemnation, which is, I think, primarily why I'm here tonight, because you know how to do a deal and buy property. What we're talking about is taking property. Before we're allowed to take, we have to go through all those steps I just mentioned. We have to work with the citizens and try and buy it first. That's always step one. When we run out of time or it's clear it's not going to work, the next step is to file a petition with the court, which is technically a lawsuit against the land itself. We name anybody who has an interest in that land to be heard, to see whether they want to object to the petition. Usually that's not a thing. I can't get into any stuff that would be appropriate in a closed session, but this is a road project. This is the most classic example of a public purpose to go and get land. The court will hopefully promptly grant our petition and appoint a panel of 3 people who don't represent the city, who don't represent the owners. They're court-appointed commissioners who will decide what just compensation is for the citizens in the first instance. We get title to the easements and we assure our schedule by depositing with the court what our own appraisal says we should pay. So we put our money where our mouth is, court gives us title, the owner's still entitled to say, yeah, but that wasn't enough. And then we have commissioners decide at the end of the day what we have to pay for that. And in that process, the owner's entitled to appear, have their own appraisal. We're entitled to appear, defend our view of what the value should be, and we'll get a decision from the commissioners. If either side doesn't love that decision, they're entitled to appeal and have a jury trial in district court. I guess I'll stop there. That's the 30,000-foot kind of pathway. Without getting into any specific parcels or getting into the weeds on anything, I'd encourage us not to do that because this is a public meeting. We are entitled to go into closed session to talk about litigation type risks and issues that come up if we start an action or are planning to start the action, or for negotiations of acquisitions, we can go into closed session. What you will see next, there's 2 ways that this comes in front of you. One is you may have on a consent agenda, hopefully, but an action to approve an offer to purchase because a deal has been reached. And then ultimately you'll get a resolution on the agenda walking through the steps to authorize condemnation of the specific easements that we need and directing us to go do that. So as Kara said, we thought it might be a good idea to set the table and allow you an opportunity to let us know if there's any questions that you have that we can help you with.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. I do have one question for you. So if we cannot come to some kind of an agreement and we have to go through that court process, does that delay the construction project at all? Or can the construction continue while we continue that negotiation?
Mayor, that's a great question. It does not delay the construction project. One of the virtues of condemnation is some surety, some assurance of schedule. This is where I indicated if we deposit in the court what our appraisal is, that amount of money, the court will give us title at that point. So there's some steps to make all that happen. But the point is, we get a target from the engineers for when they need title and possession, and we build our schedule for the court action accordingly so that we can pay into the court what we think we owe for the easements, and that gives us title.
Okay, and then at that point, the court holds that money for the landowner at such a time that is resolved.
The landowner can apply at any time for that money.
Okay.
The reason we typically deposit it in court, though, is it's often not clear who's entitled to that money. There might be multiple landowners, there might be a mortgage that thinks it's entitled to the money, those sorts of things. So we generally deposit it in court, but they're free to apply at any time as long as they give notice to all the people who might be interested that they think it's theirs, and then the court decides it's none of our business. We don't get involved in that at all.
Okay, very good, thank you. Council, other questions for Mr. Michael about this process?
I mean, without obviously getting into specifics, like you said, I'm just curious, so how many, is there, obviously the more landowners, I'm guessing the more tricky it gets. How many do we have for this? Can we at least say, in general, how many we have?
I think we have 6 or 7 different property owners, properties that we're touching. Some of those are more than one parcel.
Sure.
But for this corner that's on the screen, I think it's 6 or 7-ish.
Okay,
The Highway 5 big project is many, many more.
sure.
But that's not the one you're taking the lead on. I am working on that project, so I can give you some general information about it if you wanted to ask me about that. Just Kara is. So.
Okay, very good.
Probably worth noting that just to kind of talk through the logistics of it. So Peter is part of the Bolton and Mink team that the city has entered into a contract with to lead the process. There's an appraisal team as part of that process and a right-of-way acquisition expert who's also part of the team. So that group, absent myself or anybody from the city, is taking the lead on all of that engagement with the property owners. So an early notification letter is sent to the property owners letting them know that they're impacted by needing an easement or right-of-way. And then those right-of-way agents are working directly with the property owners to schedule meetings. An example would be to stake what the impacts are, should a property owner want to be able to see right on their property what that looks like. And so, they're taking the lead on all of that. So particularly like on the Highway 5 project, if I had a resident reach out to me with questions, I refer them back to the project process so that I'm not suddenly in the middle of ongoing discussions about the road impacts. But of course here, with us taking the lead on it, we're a little bit more directly involved.
Very good. Kara, can you give us remind us about kind of what the timeline on this project looks like?
Sure. So this one is scheduled for construction in 2025. To get all of the work that you're seeing done here on the construction, in the construction season, we'll want to get started early in the spring to get everything completed. This will include a full closure of Highway 5 to complete the roundabout at 5 and 11. So the project team is currently working through the staging of how to phase these improvements that you're seeing here. But yeah, we're still working towards a schedule of constructing next summer. As noted, we're working through final approvals of the layout so that they can complete the final construction plans. There's a lot that goes into that when you're talking about a project with federal funding. So these projects I've had the pleasure of witnessing this past year are significantly more complicated than the types of projects the city typically follows with the amount of regulation, I guess, that comes from a federal level. But yeah, I didn't look at the right-of-way schedule for this one.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you
Yeah,
any
I
more.
can't
specifically than
remember
you can
for
tonight.
this one how soon we'll be in front of the council looking for council action. The right-of-way team just kicked off their process within the last couple of weeks.
So does that mean because you said we haven't finalized the exact details, right, of this, so I'm assuming we have to finalize that first to know exactly how much land we have, right? And then
So
that's kind of what-
so the layout's finalized to the point where we know what we need for property. What isn't complete is the final construction plans that'll be used for bidding. So, that's a giant, thick plan set with all of the finer details, but the layout, it still says draft because it still needs to go through the MnDOT process for approval, but we're generally in alignment.
Just to clarify, the goal is to probably start spring of 2025.
Correct, yeah.
And last, just the one construction season, so it'll be back open with all the beautiful improvements in place by the fall.
Yeah, that is the plan for this project.
Okay. Very good. To kind of circle back again on, all the different funding partners on this, this has been kind of a long time in the making, and we have been so very fortunate to be able to secure some funding from various different sources to make a lot of these projects come to fruition, kind of all at the same time, which, is a bit of a hardship for the folks that live here, but it's also going to be a really wonderful thing to get these much-needed road improvements in place decades ahead of where we thought we were going to be. So that's a good thing. So we're going to beg for a lot of patience from our folks as they come in contact with orange cones everywhere.
Yeah. And I should note that the funding for the right-of-way acquisition associated with this project is part of the overall funding package. So, the early estimates put a placeholder in there based on the engineering team's experience with right-of-way acquisition, but the actual costs will be based on the appraisals and the process that Peter referenced. But that is worked into the overall project budget. I meant to note that earlier, just since this is a little unique, since we're leading the project that is entirely on a trunk highway and a county road. The city's cost share is lower compared to what the overall project costs are.
Very good. All right. Council, other questions at this point? Okay. Mr. Michael, any other final thoughts from you?
I'm just getting started.
Okay, very good. We'll buckle in and go ahead. Do you have anything more to say tonight, or you
I
just,
don't know.
just as we go through the process? So all right. I think so. We don't have any more questions or discussion on that. I don't believe our next speaker is here yet, so can we just recess for a few minutes, and then we'll come back as soon as she arrives, and we'll get back to the second part of our workshop. So we'll go quiet for a minute. All right, we are back for the second item on our workshop agenda this evening. That item is an overview of a recent housing study that was conducted by the Carver County Community Development Authority, or the Carver County CDA. Presenting that report this evening is Carver County CDA Deputy Director Allison Strike. Allison, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Again, Allison with the CDA. So we commissioned a countywide housing needs analysis. We actually did it in partnership with Carver County Public Health. If you're not familiar, the county has to do a community health assessment every 5 years, or it's a CHA. And then out of that CHA comes a CHIP, which is the Community Health Improvement Plan. And so for the first time ever in their current 5-year plan, they had some goals around housing. So we decided to do an updated housing study to inform that, as well as the fact that we hadn't done a countywide one since 2014. So it had been 10 years since we had done a countywide one. Next slide. So when our community truly supports abundant housing options, we all benefit. And this is just some of the many reasons why it's important for cities to have abundant housing options. Children have their grandparents. College grads can come home. Entrepreneurs take chances. Next slide. So what was a little bit different about this housing study, so this will be good for me to get some feedback. You're the first city I'm in front of. Maxfield will be coming with me to some presentations. We go to the county board in June. The one that Maxfield did in 2014, they had sections specific to each city. With this one, it's each submarket is sort of intermersed in the whole study. So I pulled out something specific to Victoria that I thought would be interesting to the council. And then I can take notes and go back if there's other things you would like to see. Or I did bring my computer with the full study where I could quick try to search for stuff. But so just a snapshot between 2010 and 2023. The largest population growth in the county occurred in Chaska and Victoria, with Victoria adding 4,283 people, so that was a 45% increase. Chaska added 4,933 people, which was a 21% growth for them. The median household income is the highest of all the submarkets in the county at $159,000. And so I should say for submarkets, Maxfield did 9 submarkets. So they grouped, all the cities have at least one township with them, and then they grouped Hamburg and Mayer and New Germany and Norwich and America together. And then the percent of all households considered cost burden in the Victoria submarket is 10.4%.
Can you define cost burden?
So cost burden is defined when a household pays more than 30% of their income towards their housing costs. So generally speaking, when you rent, we're talking about your rent and utilities, and then if you have like some renter's insurance, when you own a house, it's your mortgage, taxes, and insurance. And if you're in an HOA, it would be your HOA dues as well.
Thank you.
Sorry, and back to the household median income. The county median income is $106,000. And then Chanhassen has the second highest at $124,000. Next slide. And then just some for sale housing market analysis. The home ownership rates are the highest in Victoria and then Mayer, New Germany at 92%. Cologne is at 90.9% and Watertown at 90.7%. The median home values are the highest in Victoria at $470,000. Chanhassen is the next at $426,000, and then Carver at $360,000. The median resale price for a detached single-family home is $636,000. Chanhassen had the highest median resale for a detached single-family home at $644,000, and Victoria was second behind them.
Can I ask a question on that? How did they calculate that resale price? How far did they go back to get the median? Or what kind of time?
Want me to, I don't off the top of my
I
head.
mean, is it the
it's
last year or something?
No.
Or is it
not
like the
just-
last 10 like the 2010 to 23?
No, this is gonna be more current, so it's probably the last year to 2 years. It's gonna be pretty current, yeah.
Okay,
So they do have, so the whole study is like 330 pages long.
no, that's,
They do have some information where they'll look at trends like over the last 10 year, or from like 2010 to 2023, where you can see the trends on the median resale values.
okay.
And then the median resale value of multifamily units is the highest in Victoria at 405,000. And with the multifamily, they're talking about like townhouses. The highest resale, the next highest sale for multifamily was the city of Carver at 331,000. And then general occupancy for sale housing demand. So what this is showing is the demand in the Victoria submarket for single family and then the multifamily, so all for sale. So the demand between 2023 and 2030 for single family detached units is 429. And then between 2030 and 2040 is 738. And then the multifamily between 2023 and 2030 is 143. And then 2030 to 2040 is 246.
Okay, Allison, let's talk a little bit about what these numbers mean. Is this, so the demand is, so for instance, let's look at the single family. It says demand for 2030 to 2040 is 738. Does that mean that's how many single family units we are going to be needing to add?
Correct.
In that time? And then this 2023 to 2030, this is how many we'll need to add by that 20?
7 years.
Okay, very good, all right. And this is, and then multifamily includes like townhomes?
Yes.
It doesn't include apartments or rental?
Anything that's for sale that's not a single family home.
Okay, very good, thank you.
So then the lot supply versus the demand, this is pretty interesting as a whole. With all the submarkets, the lot supply does not meet the demand. So the supply of residential lots available within your submarket, so that's vacant developed lots and future lots, relative to the general occupancy for sale housing demand is estimated at 5.4 years. So you do not have enough lots to meet the demand based on what Maxfield is calculating you'll need. Not even in the next, probably not even in the next 7 years.
And that identifies land that's currently being developed currently?
Can you go back? Yes, it's vacant developed lots and future lots. So that's information they would have got directly from the city.
Okay.
And so then the next slide is looking specifically at pricing recommendations, and this is between 2023 and 2040, based on detached single-family and multifamily. So they are defining entry level as anything less than 350,000. So 292 detached single-family and 117 multifamily. Move up is between 450,000 and 550,000. So 700 single family and 233 multifamily. And then executive is anything 750,000 and over. So 175 and 39 of those. And the pricing that they used in the study was based on 2024 dollars, so it would need to be adjusted to account for inflation, but that's numbers they're looking at today. So now we'll talk specifically about the rental housing market. So Victoria has the highest median monthly contract rent at $1,647. And sorry, I have the county median. The county median contract rent is $1,164. And the next closest median contract rent after Victoria is Chanhassen at $1,390. So according to their study, there's 343 pending rental units in the city of Victoria. and that is Row, so Highway 5 at Rose Street, Rowers Development, 125 units of market rate, that's under construction. And then Downtown West Phase 1, which is 145 units of market rate approved. And then Gagnon property, which is 73 units of market rate proposed. So that was at the time of the study. I don't know if any of that's changed at a city level, but that's what they have as pending. And so then the next looks at the excess demand in Victoria over the next 7 years. So they're saying that you have 183 units. You have 183 units more than what you need of market rate units for the next 7 years. 20 units of affordable are needed, and then 25 units of subsidized are needed. And so affordable generally targets households between 60 to 80% of AMI and less, area median income. Area median income right now is 124,000, so 80,000's like, or 80%, sorry, is like 87,000, 90,000 right now for a household of 4. And then subsidized is where a household pays 30% of their adjusted monthly income, and then the rest is funded usually through the federal or the state government. And then the excess demand between 2030 and 2040, 68 units of market rate, an additional 20 of affordable, an additional 25 units of subsidized. So their rental housing recommendations for the city between 2023 and 2040 is 0 market rate and 0 workforce, and 40 affordable apartments or townhomes. So again, affordable is subject to income limits by HUD or Minnesota Housing. And as I mentioned, the amount of new product pending exceeds the demand potential in Victoria for your market rate units. And then they did look specifically at, they have a section specific to senior housing. So this will show you the breakdown of what they're recommending current 2023 through 2030 and through 2040. So they're market rate active adult, so they break that down by owner versus renter households. So 2030 is 89 owner, 104 renter. 2040 is 90 owner and 104 renter. And then affordable and subsidized. And again, subject to income limits or where the household pays 30% of their income. And then they have some specific demand calculations on serviced enhanced. So Maxfield defines independent living as like an active older adult, but where there are some services available that households are able to purchase, and then assisted living and memory care. That's a lot of information,
It is a lot
and
of,
there is a lot more information in the study, so I'm happy to take questions and send back. I think one of the things we might try to do, based on feedback we get, is sort of pluck out specific things cities are interested in so that we can put it in like its own separate document, because 300 and some, it's a lot. It took me weeks to read it and to like really absorb everything that I was reading, and, you know, like having to go back and highlight stuff. So I think I could see there being, you know, a need for cities wanting, you know, just a couple, you know, even like 10 pages of just their own specific submarket information.
yeah, for sure. It's a lot. I know I tried to comb through it a little bit, and even that is, it's
It is
trying.
Yes,
Bedtime reading.
Yeah.
You do have your own page in the back specific to Victoria, but it doesn't have a lot of information on it. It just really breaks down the demand kind of by each category, and then a section on the senior on the bottom. So, I mean, it gives you a little snapshot, but not a lot.
Okay.
And I did see at the end they had, and I need to look at this further, they had definitions at
Yes.
the end, which is helpful.
Yes, so one
Some of
thing
this-
that they have at the end too that I think outside of even some of the definitions then is they have, which I know we've done a work session with the city before, but this was probably pre-COVID, on like sort of tools you can have in your toolbox to sort of incentivize some of like the more affordable development. Like one thing I mentioned to Jen when we were chatting about a developer who reached out to her was like Waconia, Carver, and Watertown have a water and sewer trunk fee waiver program. that targets affordable developers. So we've used it in Waconia and Carver, and it was helpful for us to, you know, bring down some of our costs, but then we also get points for it through Minnesota Housing. So it's helpful at the end that there are kind of those tools. You know, a lot of cities have looked at inclusionary zoning policies. There's just a lot of different sort of options depending on what your appetite is at the city level to make some of that more affordable and subsidized stuff happen.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about, if we want to go back a few slides here, I want to look at the rental, the apartments, for instance. That one you said we had right here. We have 183 units of market rate that is over.
Yes,
what we
more than what you need.
How did, so knowing that there's a lot of apartment buildings going up in Carver County right now, all across the county, how did that number come out as a county, for the county as a whole?
Do you want me to dig or do you want me to get back to you? I may be able to find it if you give me a minute.
I am curious about it, so if you can,
That's why I brought it with.
I mean, I just think that there's a lot of apartment buildings going up across the county right now, and if we are 180, and we're probably one of the cities that has fewer than most.
I can tell you off the top of my head, I'm fairly certain that you are the only city that has more than what you need.
Really?
How does that look at, like, what's the basis for that, right? Does it look at, like, who's living, right? Like, figuring out, right, like, what businesses potentially, right? Like, so if Chaska has businesses that potentially bring in more people that would be apartment users versus, like, how, I guess, how it is.
So that would be a great question for Maxfield. So I'd asked Jen if she wanted me to bring Joe from Maxfield, and I think she thought right now it would just be, but they definitely would be able to probably explain that way faster than I, like the methodology in some of this stuff, because it's so many pages and each section has its own thing. Like I'd really have, and I certainly can just go back and dig and let you know. Either way, like Joe could come back or I can dig through and provide an answer.
Well, and the other thing too, these numbers are based upon 343 pending units. That number may not be accurate right now.
We know it's not because.
So it's probably 50 different for sure, or whatever, or 70 or whatever. But, so then that changes those numbers too, but it's still gonna be excess.
I mean, I would also say, right, like the hard part, right? So obviously that number jumped out to me too, right? Like, are we building too many apartments? But we've also talked about when we had the panel, right, that talked about affordable housing. One of the way to get affordable housing is to give a bunch of demand, right? Like, and that naturally will bring prices down. So part of me is like, yes, I don't want too many, but I also want, right, like those prices to naturally go down
The
too.
fact that the next highest median rental is $1,300, which is $300 less.
Right.
Is interesting to me
Yeah.
too.
Mayor,
Yes.
members of the council, I just have a quick clarification for Councilmember Roberts' question. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what I think you're asking. Because this is all interesting for us too, as we unpack this for alongside you from a staff level today. So, Councilmember Roberts, are you asking, like, if we were to have more, like if we were to develop more jobs, have more industry, retail, as we build out our commercial district, does that shift the need?
Yes, that, right? Like, I mean, are we more of a, you know, the executive market where people are, you know, CEOs and right versus, so yeah, that's kind of what.
Okay, that's
question
what I
is, yeah.
thought you were asking. I just wanted to make sure that as we go back and work with Alice Bedroom Community,
Yeah.
that we can get the correct information back to you all.
I'm sorry, I think I found it. My computer's just not cooperating.
And Mayor and council members, if I could, as Allison's looking through that, like, this is just meant to be that first blush, share the information, as we start looking more into developing our downtown west property, and then in our south growth area. And then as we're starting to just touch into visioning in our western growth area, to just try to get a baseline understanding of what our needs might be. Also, we're not that far away from starting our next round of community input and discussions around our comprehensive plan. So this just really builds that, trying to build that baseline knowledge. So we're all singing off the same sheet of music. We're happy to bring any additional information back to you all. And if there's anything specific, like looking at the tools in the toolbox, what we might have available for attracting more affordable housing. We've also had ULI here in the past talking about different unique projects. And I know we've talked about that for our RFP for downtown West. We don't want another apartment building. We want something that's unique and different for our community. So what creative options are there out there? So that's something that we've heard from you all before and staff have continued to work on, but this will help us make sure that we're really focusing in on the units and the type of units that we need as we look to diversify our housing options.
I think the other, sorry, one before you, the other thing that's hard to mesh together, I guess, is, right, we've talked a lot about wanting to expand our commercial base, right? And what is the big thing that we always talk about? Heads in beds, right? And so what better way to get heads in beds is apartments and stuff, right? So it's like, again, like we're got more than we need, but we also know we need more units to get that commercial development, right? So it's that yin and yang type thing where it's trying to figure out the right amount to get where we want to get with our commercial development.
Yeah.
So.
So I don't have a county number because they just put it by submarket. But so for market rate, Carver has a demand between 2023 and 2030, the city of Carver of 102. Chanhassen has a demand for 323, Chaska 22, Cologne 18, Hamburg, Norwich, Young America is 89. Mayor, New Germany's 20, Waconia is 137, and Watertown's 44. So Victoria is the only one who's in the negative.
Okay, okay. So did you, I don't know if you went back and benchmarked from 2014. I'm always curious when you can look back and go, were they on? Were they right?
I have not done that yet. That would be something that would be worth having Maxfield do for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if they're right. Lots of times you can point to some kind of an economic something that
Changed.
Well, right, and they do have a section here where they even talk about COVID and sort of the ramifications, how that's impacted stuff.
that would be very interesting to know. And then do they have anything around home ownership versus rental? I think we know that healthy communities need a balance of each, but there is some right balance between home ownership and rental that makes for a healthier community. And I don't know if that number was in there.
So it's just the way they broke it down, I think I talked about what they're projecting your need is for home ownership versus rental. They don't give a percentage per se.
Can you back up? Remind me about
It said
that
we
slide.
needed more single family, right? So
Yeah, I think I have that.
there's a couple back, I think.
So from 2023 to 2030 for single family, Victoria has a need for a total of 429 single family detached and
Back a
143.
couple.
I think
He's not over there.
Oh. I think while we're looking at that too, one of the things that was, I think you mentioned, you're open to like a spotlight on anything we want to dive in further.
Right there, that one. Uh-huh.
Focus on, I think that would be helpful. The information's great, but it's a lot.
It's a lot to try and go through and
So-
pick out your submarket
Yeah.
information within the whole.
Yeah, this was a sign.
So this is what they're calculating for your for sale, broken down again by single family versus the multifamily, which is like the townhomes or, triplexes, sixplexes.
And that's where it kind of like, it would be great to like have them come out and tell us like how they get to that, right? Like the why, the how, right? Because, you know, part of me says, okay, right, because we're a community that you'd come out here, right, and you'd be moving from the city and you'd come to the burbs, right, and you'd get your single family home versus, but I'd be curious to know the how they got to that.
Yeah, it's in the study, but it probably would be way
Yeah,
more
sure.
helpful to
Yeah,
let
yes, them here,
explain it.
yes.
Uh-huh.
Allison, when are you going in front of the county board with this information? It might be good for us to watch that
On
little
June
presentation.
4th
June 4th.
For a work session.
I'm
For a
sorry.
work session, so I'm not entirely sure of the time yet, because I don't think they have the agenda for the board meeting, but, 10 to 11-ish.
Okay. And I don't think they record work
They
sessions.
do not record work sessions, no.
Okay. Okay. All right. This is a discussion item, but any other thoughts or comments from,
Can we go back to I think it was the last slide or second to last slide, it was more about the senior, right, that can you, you probably said, and I just was thinking about it, all the other information. Is this what's needed, what are these numbers again? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's their demand.
Okay,
calculation
okay.
for what's needed based on their, so market rate active adult is just like it says, market rate
Yep.
and active adult, no services.
Okay,
Affordable or subsidized, and then their independent living is active older adult, but where you can add
yeah,
services on.
yep.
okay. And this is what they're saying we need now, 154 market rate active adult units.
Okay.
Wow. We got work to do in this area.
Maybe I missed it, but can you give me just a quick definition of affordable versus subsidized? I think it's based upon the 30%.
Correct. So affordable has an income limit requirement either from like Hutter, Minnesota housing. So depending on the project, usually it's 60 to 80% of area median income or below. Subsidized will always also have an income limit on it, but it targets, generally speaking, it targets lower income households, and they pay 30% of their adjusted monthly income. And then the rest comes either like from the federal government or from a state program.
Okay, thank you.
Does the Carver County CDA have any projects going on in the county currently?
Yes, I am trying to close on 2 projects right now. A 60-unit general occupancy affordable development in the city of Carver. And then we just got it replatted, so it was one parcel. Right next to that, I'm hoping to close on the 60-unit one in July, and then right next to that, I'm hoping to close in October on a 43-unit affordable senior 55 and better development. And then in the city of Waconia, we opened our first low-income housing tax credit project in 2022, and so we own across from Target. And we own a parcel of land right next to that, and I'm submitting a funding application for that to the state in July to develop 76 units of affordable senior housing.
Okay. Okay, very good. Yeah, we always strive to find ways to work with the Carver County CDA on a housing project here in Victoria, so,
Well, we always love to partner with the cities, so.
yeah, it's good stuff. All right, any other final thoughts or questions on this? All right, seeing none, and we didn't need any official action on this, but we are finished. That is our agenda for our work session this evening. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned. We'll circle back.